butterflies are awesome and very important. Stand up here. The reason butterflies are important is because, of course, they help the pollination process. Pollination has been going through a worldwide decline, not just due to the bees and the butterflies declining, which of course you might be familiar with the fact that the bees are declining and they don't know why. But when I talk to bee and butterfly experts, they say the most likely culprit is fertilization and pesticides. The use of bees seriously affects our butterflies and bees. They sprayed for mosquitoes and it killed all my buckeye butterflies. So these animals are very sensitive to changes in their environment. And we have a golf course that surrounds us, so they are supposed to let us know with everything they use, and they have yet to do so. So what happens is the butterfly is going to have 4 stages. The adult is going to lay eggs on a leaf on a host plant. The host plant is what the butterfly caterpillar eats. They host plant of like the state butterfly, the zebra heliconia, is going to be a pipe vine or a corky stem. What they're going to do is lay their eggs on this plant that they recognize probably by smell. They smell through their feet, so they're going to land on a plant, taste it, and know that it's their host plant. Then they lay the eggs hatch after a couple days. The caterpillars will eat for the next 2 to 4 weeks. This is the true with the moth, which operates at night, basically, though you'll see them sometimes during the day when they get startled. So the caterpillar is going to eat and eat and eat, and then after the 2 to 4 week period, they're going to go into the pupa phase. In the butterfly, it's going to be a chrysalis. In the moth, it's going to be a cocoon. The difference is the chrysalis is all organic material that the butterfly spits out of its mouth. The cocoon is going to be made with leaves and twigs and silk. And then after 2 to 4 more weeks, they'll hatch, although they can stay up to 6 weeks or more in that chrysalis if the weather is cold. If it's below 50 degrees. If it's 50 degrees or below, they're going to stay inside of there. If it's above that, then they'll generally hatch in 2 to 4 weeks. But they can stay quite a long time. And up north, they're going to, of course, stay in that probably all winter. They're going to stay in that hibernation kind of pupa stage. Then they'll hatch, and they're fully adulted, and they'll dry out in the sun and flitter around. They have ultraviolet vision, so when they see something like these pentas here, or the jatropha, the flowers glow to them. When the sunlight hits it, it's like a beacon, like a lighthouse to them. They're attracted to brightly colored shirts and clothing, but when they land, their feet taste that it's not a flower, and they move on. They actually are pretty good at evading predators. They're crazy flying. You'll see them avoiding trouble. And when it rains, they tend to land somewhere and hang like this with their wings just totally together to make the least amount that you get hit by water. And the powdery substance on them is actually scales. Their Greek name is Lepidoptera, which means scale wings. So that powdery substance is tiny fish scales, just like a fish. It protects them. If you wipe it off, they die because it's just like removing the scales on a fish. There are some butterflies that live a long time and they migrate. I'm only going to talk about what's really generally in this area. But the butterflies typically only live 2 to 4 weeks. But some butterflies, like the monarch and the zebra, can live 4 to 6 months. The monarch lives so long because it's a migratory butterfly. They live here year-round. They're not going to migrate from here. They like it here. They're going to stay here. But there's a monarch that lives in Maine that will go as far south as Oaxaca, Mexico. The monarchs are also poisonous. More on that later. So the monarch adult might make that journey all the way, which is going to take them a long time, a couple weeks. And then they're going to lay their eggs and they die. And their babies will go back to exactly where they are from. Somehow they have passed on information like this is where we're from. It's like snowbirds, I guess. They know where home is. And that's why it's important to keep those areas the same, because they all migrate there and there's huge hordes of them in these forest areas. So I know they try to work with Mexico to make sure those areas aren't developed. Monarchs are poisonous, which means if you bite into them, they're going to taste bitter. And the other ones that are poisonous are the viceroy and the soldier. They all look very similar. I think there's 4 altogether, but those live in our area. And the Viceroy was thought to not be poisonous. They thought it was a mimic of the monarch. They're like, oh look, it looks just like it, but it's not poisonous. I don't know if somebody finally bit into one, but they're actually more poisonous than the monarch. This is because their host plant is the milkweed, which has a milky substance that's poisonous. That's their host plant, so they are poisonous because of that. There's also milkweed bugs, that's the same thing. And they, just because of that, that might dictate their color, but they all look similar and they're all poisonous. The butterfly has a long tongue. It doesn't have an actual mouth. This long tongue is a hollow straw. They keep it curled up. You'll see it all curled up. And they use it to unfurl it and stick it into the plant and drink the nectar. And while they're doing that, they end up with pollen on them, so it helps the plants to reproduce sexually, because they're going to go from a male plant to female plant, or some plants that are asexual, they're going to pollinate them. So that's why they're important, because they help with pollination. Moths don't have that. Moths generally have a mouth, and they do suck up nectar. Some suck up nectar, some eat plants. Some, that's why they have mothballs, because they eat cotton and things. But there's one moth that's local here, the Luna moth, has no mouth at all. The Luna moth only eats while it's in a caterpillar phase. After it's born, it's going to mate and die within 2 to 3 days. So that's an interesting thing, that they wouldn't have a mouth at all. Any questions so far about our butterflies, moths, animals in general? All right, who wants to go upstairs to the air conditioner?